This is going to be about the Washington Post, the Pentagon Papers, and KGraham. We watched a movie last night that we found in the library called The Post. I was interested in it because I had been thinking a little about newspapers, about a time when they were a piping hot commodity, or media, the press, when they were snapped up and scrutinized when they mattered. They don't matter now. Newspapers, though they still exist, are a whipped dog. The movie harkens back to a time when they still had a seat at the table, when they were an important voice in the national conversation, around 1971. As something of a side note, I did not know that Steven Spielberg directed the film until it was over, so I have to acknowledge that the history of the proceedings in the movie may be somewhat flexible, adapted to suit the story he wanted to tell. That's how he rolls. It's mainly about the Pentagon Papers, released by Daniel Ellsberg when he was not authorized to do that, when they were classified documents. The New York Times began to publish excerpts very unfavorable to several administrations, accusing them of lies and distortions, of carrying on with a war they knew they could not win, rather than face the humiliation a defeat would bring. The government, in the form of a federal judge, blocked the Times from publishing any more of the papers, claiming that they were a threat to national interests and security. The Washington Post, in the form of Ben Bradlee, wants only to get in the game, and they do so by locating Ellsberg, who has photocopied maybe 50 volumes of material, most of it damaging to the political authorities, past and present. And the story, or the version of it presented by Spielberg, is interesting, but it's not the part of the movie that pulled me in. That part was about the role of men and the role of women in America at that time. Simply put, maybe too simply, but it's more powerful that way, men were running the show and women were window dressing. Featured in this context is Catherine K. Graham, played by Meryl Streep. Many, many times in the movie, she is alone in a room full of men. Big decisions are being made. She is there because her father established the Post, and he passed it to her husband Philip, said to be a bright, tough man who ran with all the big horses until he killed himself. It's unclear why, or the accident, as her friends refer to it. And her friends are most of the central figures in Washington, including Robert McNamara, who is so vitally involved in the creation of the study, known as the Pentagon Papers, that is about to undo him, expose him as a duplicitous manipulator. Graham runs the Post, but in name only. Everybody knows it's Bradlee's show. Graham's interest is in the style section, fashion and the arts. About style, she may be heard. At a dinner party, when the dining is done and the conversation is about to begin, the women take their cue and depart to an adjoining room where they can discuss style, while the men light cigars and kick around current events. As is exposed in the Pentagon Papers, the men, in all of their precious vanity, have been doing a ruinous job of directing the nation. The question is, should the Post publish what they have found with Ellsberg? Bradlee is all for it, along with his editors and writers. The lawyers and investors all say no. Graham is the one who has skin in the game, skin, blood, and organs too. She faces financial ruin, public disgrace, the betrayal of her friends, jail time, the end of her family's influence. She has everything on the line, and every reason not to publish. But she has seen the wrongs that have been committed by a succession of men, and she thinks she might be able to help bring a stop to it, to finally put an end to that war, the big accident. So she says go. Go ahead. Publish. Bradley's wife tells him Graham was brave. He's not so sure. He thinks she made a good business decision. She insists on it. Look at her position, she says, alone, up against a world of men. That may have been the last time that newspapers could and did make a difference.